The worst kept secret around Notre Dame is now basically official. Notre Dame is going to re-sign with Under Armour for the next decade in what is believed to be the richest apparel deal in college sports, according to Dellenger of Yahoo Sports. Why it happened, what it means, and more coming up next.
You are Locked On Irish, your daily podcast on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Irish. It is Wednesday, August 2nd, and thank you for making this your first listen of the day. As always, you can watch a full episode on YouTube or listen wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Tyler Wojciak, and I'm the host. I graduated from Notre Dame in 2018, and now I'm a producer covering college football at the Fox Sports headquarters in Los Angeles. I've also been podcasting about the Irish since 2020, and that is why I'm here with you today. I'll be honest, I'm surprised it took this long for me to have to do this episode because for over a month, it seemed inevitable that Notre Dame was going to end up re-signing with Under Armour eventually, even though Jack Swarbrick looked around to Nike, Jordan, and Adidas to evaluate their offers. But in the end, it looks like Notre Dame is going to go with Under Armour. So today, I'm going to go over how I feel about the decision, why I think Notre Dame opted to go in this direction, and what it means for the athletic program going forward, because it's not just football. This affects all sports at Notre Dame. And I also want to go over some things I'd like to see in this new iteration of the partnership, because I think we can all agree that there's a lot to improve upon there. Then we'll wrap up things on a positive note in segment 3, because the Irish did pick up their third commitment in the class of 2025 from four-star running back Justin Thurman out of Florida. So we'll end on a positive note. But before I dive into the Under Armour deal, I should point out that at the time of this recording, which is 5:47 p.m. On Tuesday, there has been no word from Notre Dame or Under Armour about this deal. This is all based off a report from Dellenger from Yahoo Sports. And to be clear, I believe him that the deal is already in place. Maybe some of the specifics aren't known. Maybe they haven't had it signed, sealed, and delivered and all of that. But I do think that Notre Dame is definitely going to re-sign with Under Armour. I don't think Ross would have put this out if there was any conversation about Notre Dame not going in that direction. And in Ross's initial tweet, he said that it was the richest deal in college sports. But looking at his article now, he says that it's alongside the likes of Texas, Kansas, Louisville, Ohio State, Nebraska, and Michigan, all schools with deals believed to range from to $10 million a year. He says that Notre Dame is going to bring in $10 million annually, but until we get an official announcement from the school and the company, I don't think we're going to get an exact understanding of the dollars and cents of the whole thing. But I do think it's going to be a 10-year deal, and even then, the full extent might not be publicized once Notre Dame and Under Armour do actually come out and say, yep, the deal is done, because we know how Notre Dame operates with their deals. They're not always public. A lot of it is going to be private. But for the sake of this discussion, I think it's going to be a 10-year deal with around $10 million annually being brought in via licensing fees. So before we get to that, let me be clear about this. I don't like this move. I wish Notre Dame went with Nike. I would have been happy with Jordan too. Not so much Adidas, sort of been there, done that. But I like Nike stuff. I'm a Nike guy. I'm wearing some, literally right now, I'm wearing a Nike t-shirt. And I just think their product is far superior to Under Armour. Not just their merchandise and not what we as fans wear, but I also think that their gear is a lot better than any of the other companies as well. And I know that there's some fans out there who don't like Nike as a company. I think that has more to do with politics than anything else. I'm not going to touch on that for obvious reasons, but I feel pretty confident in saying that those people are in the minority among the fan base, and I feel extremely confident that the players and coaches involved would certainly disagree with them. Nike is just more popular with people my age, and not just people who are 27, but people who are a little older than me, and pretty much everyone who's younger than me too, I would say. And it's been that way for a long time, pretty much since the moment that Michael Jordan decided to sign with Nike over everyone else. They've been on top, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. They've been at the top for a long time, and I expect them to continue to be at the top. And I'm disappointed, I will say, that the players of the programs, the ones who are actually going to have to represent whoever Notre Dame went with in this deal on the actual field, they probably didn't have much of a say in this. If they did, I don't think Notre Dame would be going with Under Armour. If what the players wanted was the top priority, then they'd probably be going with Nike. Have I talked to every single Notre Dame athlete? No, but that is my hunch, and that is my educated guess. And another thing with Under Armour, I haven't really liked most of the alternate uniforms from them across the sports, even though I do like the green jerseys for the Ohio State game, which I do think it's a coincidence of sort that Notre Dame unveiled those green jerseys for the Ohio State game, one that were actually, pretty well approved by fans on the same day that the Ross report came out. Now, I would have expected Notre Dame to want to be the first on the news and come out with this big, grand announcement about the deal. Same with Under Armour. But as of this time, we have not gotten that, okay? And I mentioned the gear a little bit with Nike. I really don't like the footwear that Under Armour puts out. It's not really that good looking. I mean, I remember when Steph Curry came out with his Under Armour shoe, he got roasted online for a really long time. And that's one thing about the sneaker community, man. They absolutely just destroy Under Armour all the time. So that's not great, not just in terms of aesthetic, but in the actual function as well. But all of that being said, I get why Notre Dame made this decision. I do. I wish things would have gone down differently. I wish the circumstances would have been different, but I understand how we ended up at this point. Ross points out in his article that Under Armour's offer was significantly higher than the others. I've heard that it's around double compared to what Nike offered. Even if we don't know the exact dollar amount, we're talking millions and millions of dollars here. It's not light, okay? If, say, Notre Dame did sign a $10 million deal annually, what are we thinking here? Nike offered like $5 million a year? That's not a whole lot of money comparatively. That's a lot of money to turn down. And I know that some people think, oh, well, Notre Dame has endless money. No, they don't. Okay, they don't. This money matters. And for the elite college athletic departments out there, which includes Notre Dame, obviously, Ross points out that apparel deals are revenue-generating giants. Not only is Notre Dame going to receive an annual licensing fee that's probably around the $10 million we discussed, they also probably get a cut of royalties from merchandise sales as well. Ross suggests that cut is roughly 10 to 15%. So whatever the annual licensing fee is, which is, we think, $10 million, it's probably going to be a lot more money heading to Notre Dame annually because of the cut they get from the merchandise. And I'm sure as I point this out, there's going to be some people out there who roll their eyes and say it's always about the money. Yeah, it is. A lot of times it's about the money, but not always. And I can think of one very clear and a rather high-stakes example in which Notre Dame turned down a lot of money to make a decision that is more in line with their values, traditions, and everything else that makes the university unique. Their decision to remain independent in football, as opposed to joining one of the major conferences, specifically the Big Ten. I look at this apparel deal as a way to make back some of the money they lose in TV revenue every single year by remaining independent. I think this is now part of the cost of being independent at Notre Dame. And as you know, you're a smart Notre Dame fan. You know that Notre Dame misses out on a lot of money in television revenue to remain independent. Let's go over the numbers again. Notre Dame is currently in negotiations with NBC about their next television contract. The highest number I've seen thrown out there is $75 million. That was from Dennis Dodd from CBS Sports about a year ago. I don't think that's going to be the case. The general consensus, or I guess the general understanding right now, is that the new deal for Notre Dame with NBC is going to be close to $60 million annually for Notre Dame. Certainly a big increase from their current deal, but it's not even close to what they could be making if they joined a conference. They need to be a little bit closer. Maybe it will be closer to $75 million. We don't know, but right now let's operate on $60 million because that's the number that I've seen the most. This time last year, August of 2022, the Big Ten finalized a new 7-year media rights agreement with Fox, CBS, and NBC that is worth $7 billion. Billion, with a B. The Big Ten is projected to distribute roughly $80 to $100 million per year to each of its 16 members with this new television contract. And by 2025, that number is expected to be at least $100 million. That's a $40 million difference projected if Notre Dame does end up re-signing with NBC for $60 million compared to what they could be getting in the Big Ten. And honestly, if Notre Dame did join the Big Ten, that money would go up even more. So if you think about it, it could be closer to $50 million per year that they could get by joining a conference. But they don't do that. And as Notre Dame fans, we understand that there is a cost of being independent, and it's like the biggest misconception among college football fans who think Notre Dame is independent for greed. Nope, wrong. But that cost is going up, and it's going to continue going up because this television money, it's not slowing down. All right, and in order to keep up with everyone else, Notre Dame has to make back some of that money, and this is a good way to do it. So let's say Notre Dame did go with Nike for significantly less money, let's say $5 million. Would I be happy to buy the merch? Yes. Would it make Notre Dame seem cooler to recruits? Yes. But what matters more, the perception or the reality? In this case, I think it's reality, and the reality is that college football is in a perpetual arms race, and Notre Dame has to keep up. Now, there's obviously risks to this. Under Armour hasn't been a major player in college athletics, especially since they dropped their deals with UCLA, Cal, Hawaii, Cincinnati, Boston College. And that's not great, but things do seem to be improving there. Things aren't as good as they were when Notre Dame initially signed with them, but they did report a 3% increase in revenue during the 2023 fiscal year, up to $5.9 billion. They're also they still outfit Auburn, Wisconsin, South Carolina, Utah, and Texas Tech, so it's not like they're completely out of the college game either. There are some other big programs out there that they're attached to. So even though Notre Dame is going to be and should be the top priority, they're still involved in college athletics, which you should want, considering that Notre Dame is now going to be partners with them for the foreseeable future. You want them to be in the mix. You want their reputation to grow, and a good way for that to happen is if they're a part of some other successful programs in college football. I've also seen some people out there that say this shows Notre Dame is not committed to winning. I don't get that at all. Like, don't get me wrong. I think maybe there's a problem with the footwear. I don't think that it's like an epidemic across all the sports, and now all of the athletes are suffering foot injuries year in and year out that aren't happening anywhere else. I mean, sure, there have been some at Notre Dame, and something that Notre Dame should seriously look into, but it's not that extreme that I think it's holding the team back from winning. And do we really think, seriously, that Under Armour is the reason that Notre Dame hasn't been able to recruit like Georgia and Alabama? Like, that's why they're not getting 5 stars? No. All right? And I understand that it's far less desirable to recruits, but since Notre Dame signed their original deal with Under Armour, have you heard it mentioned one single time that a recruit did not go to Notre Dame because of their deal with Under Armour? Because I haven't, all right? And if a recruit does cite that as his reason, he was never going to work out at Notre Dame anyway. You need money to win. You do. In all sports, in life. It's just a fact. And that's how you build facilities. That's how you pay coaches, and that's how you do the things that actually lead to the results in the field. So again, I hate that it had to be this way. I wish that the circumstances could have been different and money wasn't a factor, but money is almost always a factor, like it or not. And in the arms race of college football, way more often than not, it's the deciding factor. All right, coming up next, I've got a list of things I'd like to see Under Armour do in this next contract, plus what it means for Notre Dame going forward. Maybe if they do all these things, they'll start to come around, but probably not. This episode of Locked On Irish is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. I used LinkedIn Jobs a couple years ago in between working at ESPN and Fox Sports. I found a job opening at a production company on LinkedIn, and they made it easy to contact the hiring manager, learn more about the role, and eventually I got the job. LinkedIn also makes it incredibly easy to create a free post on LinkedIn Jobs. All you have to do is add your job in the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. We all know hiring people can be time-consuming, but adding the right team member can be invaluable to your business, and LinkedIn Jobs makes it easier than ever before. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Thanks again for making Locked On Irish your first listen of the day. This is your reminder to please like the video below and subscribe to the channel if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're listening to the podcast, please rate, review, and subscribe there as well. Okay, let's talk about what this deal means for Notre Dame going forward and how this partnership can be better the second time around. The first thing that needs to happen is that Under Armour needs to fix their footwear. It's a problem. Like, I don't know if you can contribute all the foot injuries that Notre Dame has dealt with in recent years to Under Armour, but it's certainly cause to look into. I heard that women's basketball players were even wearing Nike pretty publicly last season, and if it's because their footwear for Under Armour is just that bad, that's a serious problem that needs to be addressed. But I will say that there have been some encouraging developments on that front. Back in May, Marcus Freeman visited the Under Armour headquarters in Baltimore and met with Kevin Plank, the CEO, and not only did he do a tour with him, but Freeman actually met with members of the product design team to provide feedback and guidance on not just future collections of gear, but also sideline wear and apparel and stuff that hopefully you and I are going to have access to so that we can buy it, because that's my second point, is that Under Armour needs to sell the best merch. Please, okay? Marcus Freeman rocks some really cool Under Armour gear. He does, and all the other coaches do, and for whatever reason, Under Armour doesn't post it for sale a lot of times. I don't know why. I don't know why they would gatekeep, because they would make a ton of money from that. I know that personally, my mom has probably bought the entire Notre Dame bookstore in some form or capacity over several years, and I'm sure you know a lot of people like that as well. Notre Dame fans like to represent Notre Dame. It's just a way of life. And when you put out the best gear, Notre Dame fans are going to want to buy it. So I put those two things together, basically. Give the athletes the best gear that money can buy, basically, and then just sell the best stuff on the website. They really need to do that. I can't imagine hearing a single argument in the contrary why they would not want to do that. But that's something that needs to happen. It would make for a better partnership. And let's just be honest, fan sentiment right now about Under Armour is not great. Maybe there's a few fans out there who are listening to this that are like, hey, we love Under Armour. Why are you talking so negatively about it? I'm happy for you guys. Seriously, I am, because now you just get to enjoy this where everyone else, and myself included, gets to complain about it publicly. But I do think that there is a way for this partnership to be better, and this is just a start, okay? So they need to fix the footwear. They need to sell the best merch on the website. Greg Flamong from Irish Sports Daily, good friend of the program, love him, but he is maybe the most upset about this move. And he did point out that those really cool green jerseys that Notre Dame unveiled on Monday for the Ohio State game that fans really enjoyed were not available on the website. Come on, Under Armour. Get it together, guys. Capitalize on the moment. Capitalize on the excitement that fans have for you when things are actually going well. Okay, so those are a couple things. I've already talked about this a little bit. They got to get rid of any combination that involves the green that they use in Navy on any jersey, on any shirt, on any hat. I don't care. Whatever it is, get rid of it. It does not work. I don't understand what it is. If it's the way our eyes are constructed, if there's someone out there who disagrees with me, let me know in the comments, and I will fight you on this because it doesn't make sense. I know that some of the sports writers, people who are in the press box, don't like seeing the Navy numbers with the green jerseys because they just can't see the numbers and they can't differentiate who's who. I get that. That's not the reason why I don't like it. I just don't think it works as a color combination. Green and gold is cool. Green and white is cool. Green and navy is not. It doesn't make any sense. Don't do it. Okay, on a more serious note, though, Under Armour needs to put Notre Dame on a pedestal, and they need to stay there for however long this contract is, whether it's 5 years, 10 years. I think it's going to be 10 years. Notre Dame needs to be at the top. They need to get the princess treatment, for lack of a better term. And this is where the NIL part comes into play, and to be honest, I don't understand how that's going to work. We're operating with a lot of unknowns, as I mentioned on this podcast. We don't really know all the details, and maybe Under Armour is offering some NIL opportunities to student athletes that maybe would make the student athletes come around. Because one thing that if Notre Dame did end up going with Nike and they ended up going with Jordan, whatever the case may be, if Notre Dame tried to arrange some NIL deals with them that are specific to Notre Dame, how do you think that the other partners with Nike would feel about that? Like, would Ohio State just be cool that Nike is offering Notre Dame athletes NIL opportunities, but they're not offering them? That doesn't really make sense. And even though Under Armour does have other college programs, like I mentioned, Wisconsin, Utah, some big-time ones, Notre Dame is clearly going to be the top priority. It's something that Notre Dame likes. They like to be, the biggest priority for their partners. It's that way with NBC. Now, granted, NBC has a little bit more people to work with. They have some more partners with the Big Ten, but Notre Dame is still a very high priority for them. They like to be special. It's the Notre Dame way. I understand why people can feel some type of way about that, but it does benefit them probably way more often than not. So with Under Armour, is it different? Are there more NIL opportunities for student athletes at Notre Dame now? Maybe. Again, we don't know. I'd like to see that. I'd love to see Notre Dame athletes in Under Armour commercials. Just think about how cool it'd be if Sam Hartman was rocking Under Armour gear in a commercial, or Marcus Freeman. People who are going to be around and representing the program on the biggest stages. I think they should be ambassadors for Under Armour. If that happens, I think a lot of the players are going to start changing their tune on Under Armour if they get to be involved in commercials and they start getting some paychecks from them. That could certainly turn things around. And it's not just football either. The women's basketball team at Notre Dame is incredibly marketable, especially in a basketball community where, let's be honest, Under Armour doesn't have the best reputation. We spend all this time talking about Under Armour and football. Maybe we should be talking more about the basketball programs. Like maybe Micah Shrewsbury and Coach Neil Ivey are way more upset because of the standing of Under Armour in basketball compared to football. Maybe if some Notre Dame basketball players had NIL deals with Under Armour, that would change some things. Again, this might be part of the new deal. We don't know at this point in time, and that'll be really interesting to hear Jack Swarbrick talk about it whenever that happens, because I'm sure that once this deal comes out, he's going to talk about it. But this is really important because when Notre Dame originally signed that deal with Under Armour 10 years ago, that was, at the time, the richest apparel deal in all of college sports. I don't know if this new deal is. Ross Dellenger said it was at first, but now he sort of backed off on that a little bit. Maybe it still will be, and that's great. Odds are, in the span of the next 10 years, that's probably going to change. There's going to be other apparel deals that are either re-signed or, a team goes in a different direction and they're going to sign a bigger deal because that's what happens. And once that happens, that sort of, prestige about being the richest deal, it's going to wear off. So Under Armour has to constantly work to make sure that Notre Dame is always the top priority. I don't care what Utah and Wisconsin think. They got to understand Notre Dame's the biggest brand in all of college athletics. Notre Dame needs to be on the top. They need to be the top priority. They need to be treated as such. Marcus Freeman going to the Under Armour headquarters and having a say in the product design, in the gear, and all of that is important. I think that kind of got thrown, it's under the radar a little bit, and fans don't really understand that. I don't know if Kirby Smart is going to the Nike headquarters and telling Phil Knight and company how to run his business. It's probably not going to happen, right? Whereas Under Armour and the relationship that Notre Dame has with them, that's a realistic thing. Marcus Freeman can meet up with Kevin Plank and he can get a tour of their entire headquarters and then talk to their design team and say, hey, this is what we need. This is where you're lacking, and this is what needs to be improved. That's a good sign, okay? That needs to continue, and I think it will as part of this new deal. So those are a few things. Again, if they do all these things, I think that the partnership will be a lot better. I don't know if fans are ever going to change their mind about Under Armour because it's not cool. I don't really see that changing that much in 10 years. But hey, Marcus Freeman's a pretty cool dude. Maybe he can change that perception. All right, let's end on a good note here in segment 3, all right? Notre Dame got another running back commit, and I really like this prospect, and I'll tell you why right after this. All right, so on Tuesday, 4-star running back Justin Thurman out of Tampa, Florida, announced his commitment to Notre Dame. He is now the third commit for Notre Dame in the class of 2025, and he's a good player. He's 5'11", 185 pounds. That's what he's listed as. He looks a little bit scrawnier on tape. And he is the 27th ranked running back in the class of 2025 and the 32nd ranked prospect in the state of Florida. Notre Dame hasn't had a ton of success recruiting in Florida over the years, so getting a player of Thurman's caliber this early on in the process is certainly a good sign. He's like a fringe top 300 prospect right now. He's rated as the number 279th player nationally, but that ranking is very fluid considering he's got two more years left of high school football still to play, and he picked Notre Dame over Florida, Tennessee, Auburn, among other schools. So this is a big-time prospect. He actually visited Notre Dame in early July, and coming out of that visit, he raved about Notre Dame, the academics, the campus, and particularly running backs coach Dylan McCullough. This has become a theme because McCullough has been phenomenal on the recruiting trail ever since he came over to Notre Dame. And his predecessor, Lance Taylor, certainly charged up the recruiting operation for the Notre Dame running backs once he came in charge, and then McCullough has been able to carry that going forward. And considering McCullough is pretty much done with the class of 2024, he's got his two commitments in Kedron Young and Aeneas Williams, he was able to get a head start on the class of 2025, and it's already paying off. I asked Locked On recruiting insider Brian Smith, he's been on the show a few times, and he lives out there in Florida. He's had an opportunity to interview Thurman multiple times, and he said that Thurman is an ND fit all the way. Speed kills. He's an extremely fast prospect. He even said that, Brian Smith said that Thurman could play cornerback, slot wide receiver, running back, because he's that athletic, and he's actually way more physical than his frame might suggest. I said he's listed as 5'11", 185 pounds, but this dude's a dog. On his highlight tape, there's a lot of plays when he's out there on kickoff coverage, making contact down the field, and he is getting after on the football field. So there is a chance that he could project as a defensive player at Notre Dame, but I don't expect that to happen. I think he's going to be a running back for now. Now, obviously, this is still very early on in his recruitment, so things could change, but right now I think he's going to be a running back. And he actually had to play behind a senior running back last year as a sophomore, and that senior at Jesuit High School in Florida, he signed with Temple. Okay, so Thurman is next up at Jesuit. He's going to be the dude on a team that loves to run the ball, and by all accounts, he is just a great fit at Notre Dame. He's a good player. Great fit. And I'm going to be honest. When I first heard this, I was a little concerned because I'm like, okay, he's committing now, but if he's committing because of Dylan McCullough, like, let's be honest. Odds are Dylan McCullough is not going to be around to coach Thurman once he gets to Notre Dame, even though it's a couple years from now. McCullough is a really good assistant coach, and he's a position coach. And what happens to really good position coaches in college? They get promoted. Not just to another running back's job, he could become an offensive coordinator. Look at Lance Taylor, okay? He went from Notre Dame running backs coach to offensive coordinator at Louisville to the head coach of Western Michigan in like 3 years. Actually, 2 years. He went, because he spent 1 year at Louisville as the OC and then was the head coach the year after that. So a lot can change, all right? So I don't expect McCullough to be around a long time because he's a really good coach and he's expressed his desire to be an offensive coordinator and even a head coach someday. So I think he's going to get offers. I think he's going to leave Notre Dame eventually. And sometimes when that happens, you get worried about a recruit and his commitment status because the person who's recruiting them the most is likely their position coach, and that's obviously the case here with McCullough. So I am actually not worried about him decommitting. Now, again, it's still very early on. He could eventually flip. But I do, from my understanding, Justin Thurman is committing to the university and not the coach. And that's a very good sign when you get guys this early on in the process. And again, I think he's a really good player. There is a reason that McCullough, with all his time now to recruit the class of 2025, recruited a player like this. He's obviously very high on him for all the reasons I just mentioned. He's extremely fast, and Notre Dame needs a lot of speed to compete with the elite in college football, and it's clear that Justin Thurman is up there. I think he ran a 10.84 in the 100-meter, and once that happened, that's when the offers started rolling in for him because they were like, oh, wow, this dude's a player. And as I mentioned, he didn't get a ton of play. I mean, he played as a sophomore, but he wasn't the main feature back on a run for his offense because there was a senior running back who went Division I. So I think we're going to see a lot more from him his junior season, and then again in his senior season. He plays for a really good program in Jesuit. Brian Smith actually said it's kind of like Notre Dame. A lot of money at that school. Big, really nice buildings, but also a very strong football program. They won the state championship in 2021. So he's playing against really quality competition. He's a really good player, and he's a great fit at Notre Dame. So this is a really good commitment. Again, it's early on in the process. Notre Dame only has 3 in the class of 2025. That could change here pretty soon because a lot of offers went out this week in that class. But things are rolling in that class. It's very early. I can't believe I'm talking about a kid who's not even a junior in high school yet, but that's the way of recruiting now. You got to get in on him early, and Notre Dame did with Justin Thurman, and that is why, or one of the reasons why, he's now committed to Notre Dame. All right. That is a wrap for this episode of Locked On Irish. Thanks again for making this your first listen of the day. For the everydayers out there, make sure you tune in to tomorrow's episode to hear from recruiting insider Kevin Sinclair to get an in-depth report on Notre Dame's Grill and Chill event, plus a little bit more recruiting check-in from him. On the way out, remember to subscribe to the show on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, and follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Irish, on Instagram at Locked On Irish Pod, and my personal Twitter account at Tyler WOJCIAK. I'll see you guys tomorrow.